weekly meeting on this gloomy, again, Thursday, February 6th. Before I start, I'm gonna have Lynn Weber make an announcement.
Thank you, Liz. You may wish to keep in your thoughts that Bill Nations, many of whom you may know, passed away this last week. His service will be at 2 o'clock on Saturday at the First Presbyterian Church.
And with that news, please join me in a moment of reflection and prayer for those that are less fortunate than us. Thank you. Gail will lead us in the flag salute, and Michael Stinnett will lead us in the four-way test.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you. Be seated. I have a guest with me, Courtney, and I'm going to introduce her in a few minutes, and we're going to go on now to the student of the month. So we're going to Rick, we're going to your table.
Who did one now? Well, it's the first of the month, and guess what? We have 3 new students, and they are awesome. I can't wait to meet them. They're all nice girls. I know girls do dominate this program, and I'm not sure why. We welcome them here. I'd like to, when you stand and talk, be sure to introduce your parents or your sponsor. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe the highlights of your senior year so far and what are your plans for next year? And I'll start with Mandy Shannon at Norman High School.
Hi everyone, my name is Mandy Chen and I attend Norman High School currently. This year I've gotten the honor of serving as student body president. And I'd say a highlight of my senior year has probably been working with our student council to put on school-wide assemblies to raise school spirit. And then next year I plan to attend OU December Road. And I'm super excited to continue my studies and do the chapter of my life.
Next, we have Joel TV. He's not a girl. Norman North High School.
I'm Julian. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to serve as the president of the Norman North Band, and my favorite memory of high school is probably traveling around, playing in like SWASU, OSU, OU, and going around to jazz festivals and performing. And I plan on going to UCO next year and studying jazz and performance, and hopefully become a performer and or a college professor in music. This is my mom, Stephanie.
And last but not least, we have Luna Winery from the Masons Academy. Luna.
Hello. Hello, my name is Luna Winery. I'm from the Dimensions Academy, and I'm here with my teacher, Allison Wood, who has helped me a lot this year. I'd say my highlights sparked my love to create again. And next year, I want to go to more Norman to for graphic design and to help and like build a career in art. I mean.
That's great. Thank you all for sharing, and we'll talk to you next week.
And while you're back there, we'll start with announcements, and Craig has an announcement.
Since we did not give away books last week, we had to reschedule those to this week. And I need some people weren't able to do it, that volunteered to do it. So we need some help at Wilson and Adams tomorrow morning. I need those schools covered. Can anyone do Wilson or Adams? I can do Wilson. Do Wilson? Do Adams? Okay, thank you.
Are we covered on the book fair?
Saturday, not the weekend.
Okay. So if you want to volunteer for the book fair next weekend for Valentine's, we'll send out a reminder about that next week. So please sign up. It's really easy and fun. So thank you for helping fill the spots. And remember, if you have that tomorrow morning, set your alarms early so you can be at the schools. With no further ado, I'd like to have my friend Courtney White come on up. I told her she wasn't gonna have to talk, she just has to stand next to me and look cute, which she does anyway, just by standing there. So, this is really special for me. I was telling some people in the back, Lynn Weber and that table back there, that I had a friend visiting me from out of town, from Montana, and she said, well, what's she here for? And so she's here just to visit me, but I met her in Singapore. So, y'all heard me talk about, Michael and I went to Singapore, and it was a wonderful experience for me. And I was just really blown away with all the education I got there and the people I met. But I met a very special, extra special person that's never even been to a Rotary meeting. First one is today. So I have a few words to say and a recognition I'd like to give her. So today I have this distinct honor of recognizing my dear friend. I first met Courtney White last May at the Rotary International Conference in Singapore, and from that moment we were connected. It was clear that she has a warm and caring spirit and a very giving person. It was magical, that is the theme of the year, when we met and I knew we would be lifelong friends. Her passion and commitment to clean water initiatives in Africa have been nothing short of remarkable. Access to safe water, not just a necessity, but a lifeline, as our club also knows as we do these projects in Bolivia. Through her efforts alongside others from her Montana Rotary community, communities have gained access to clean, sustainable water sources, transforming lives and creating a ripple effect of health, hope, and opportunity. It is only fitting that today, at her very first Rotary meeting, we recognize her with one of Rotary's highest honors, the Paul Harris Fellow. This distinction is awarded to individuals whose contributions exemplify the spirit of humanitarianism, service, and Courtney is more than deserving. Courtney, thank you for your friendship, your dedication, and your unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. We are so grateful that you're here today. I'd like to present you with your very first Paul Harris Fellow. We go from laughing to crying in like 5 seconds normally. So, and I also got a Singapore 2024 Rotary pen for her because that's where we met.
Thank you. I'm not being
Okay, that was very special
update, and I said, you know, it's enough hearing from Daryl. Let's hear from the new kid. And so, no, in all seriousness, I reached out to Daryl and I said, what do you think? And he said, this would be an excellent opportunity to, although it's been, 9 months, to introduce, for those that don't know, our new Assistant City Manager, Shannon Stevenson. She started at OU, finished at OU. Texas stole her for a little bit, but we got her back. And let me share what she was doing in Texas. She was serving the North Central Texas Council of Governments. Is that like our ACOG?
It is.
Okay. Specializing in air quality and transportation planning. She was responsible for securing millions of dollars in federal funding for North Texas throughout her career. That is not a good acronym. She also worked for the Center for Analysis and Prediction of Storms. I failed to say she has a meteorology degree. And she managed a variety of outreach programs, serves as an airline liaison. Right now, as Assistant City Manager, ready for this? She oversees human resources, IT, Parks and Rec, Planning and Community Development, and Public Works Department. Does Daryl do anything?
Fire police.
Okay, all right, fine. I am delighted to have our new Assistant City Manager, Shannon Stevenson.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for having me today. It is hard to follow that dedication, so thank you for having me. Yes, I have a few departments that I oversee, so I am thrilled to be here, first of all. So Stephen was right, I've been here about 9 months, so still pretty new, but not as new as I have to joke. Daryl, of course, I know Daryl's everyone's biggest cheerleader, and he comes with all the jokes and the stories, so those are some big shoes to fill. So I may not have all the stories or the jokes, but I did have to give him a little bit of grief. So I was in the job 2 weeks, and poor Daryl probably has not had a vacation since the time he came to Norman. So he had planned a family vacation back to California after 2 weeks of being here, and in 2 weeks we had a city council meeting in which the entertainment district was on the agenda, and we went until about midnight, and so I had to step in and fill that role. No, I was like, Daryl, we're 2 weeks, really? He was like, it's gonna be fine. So he was right. Everybody in the city does a great job, honestly. All of the directors and all of the folks that I work with have been amazing and really kind of helped the transition make it as easy as possible, as well as all the citizens and all the businesses. You guys have made it great for me as well. I haven't looked back. I have been back to Texas a couple times for the holidays, but every time I'm back in North Texas, I'm like, I cannot wait to get back to Oklahoma. So I've known that 35 quite a bit, but I'm always just trying to head north, trying to get back here. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that are taking up a lot of our time at the city. Some of the things you've seen in some of the news, some of the things you've read in the papers or online. So I kind of wanted to at least address some of these things head on and to sort of let everybody know what's going on the city side of things and how we're trying to address that and how we're trying to combat some of the issues that we're facing. Some of you have heard this before. I think some of you have been in a couple of other presentations with me, so I apologize if your name is again. So today I thought we would focus on really kind of the top 5 things that myself and Daryl are really kind of been focused on really since I kind of came to Norman. So the very first thing that I noticed after I moved back was definitely the homelessness issue and the related affordable housing crisis that we kind of have within our city, or the shortage of housing that we have, was really kind of first and foremost. As I mentioned, we have the entertainment district was kind of up on the plate. Also want to talk a little bit about transportation and something known as, I don't know if you've heard about OTA, as well as commuter rail, the possibility of that coming to Norman. Talk a little bit about the adoption of our master plan and planning for 2050. And then finally talk a little bit about future funding and securing funding for Norman so we can continue a lot of these great projects and continue doing the of all, I want to kind of just, again, let's just dive right in. I know this is a hot topic, it's whether, on all sides. And so I think the city is been working hard to try to find solutions to address our homelessness. And, unfortunately or fortunately, we serve at the direction of our council. And so sometimes that doesn't always align with some of the business community, but sometimes it does. So it's been a very tricky issue to navigate, because you want to be compassionate and you want to be respectful of those who are experiencing homelessness, but I think you also want to keep those businesses and want to make sure that the community continues to thrive. So I am happy to report that in January, we did have a new operator assume operations for the shelter. We have City Care that is now running our shelter for us. And so City Care comes to us from Oklahoma City. They have been in operation for many years. And I think the nuance with City Care is they bring to the table a lot of resources that we didn't have before. They bring housing navigators. They bring folks that are actually trying to really get these folks into permanent housing. So I think we've already seen a difference. We've already seen a difference in just some of the requests that they've made of staff or the city, or hey, can we get this or that? I know they've reached out to the community. I know that they have a day of volunteerism, January 22nd. If you're interested, they're looking for some volunteers to help. They've also started to engage with a lot of the other nonprofits and organizations within the community. So I think, again, regardless of where the shelter winds up, the next 6 months, a year, or if the city doesn't even have a shelter, I think City Care is going to be here to help at least address some of the crises that we've been facing. I also wanted to say that we know the location of the shelter is terrible. It's terrible for everybody. I think even the shelter operators themselves say it's a terrible location. We definitely recognize that. And so we've been having weekly meetings with the state, with Oklahoma. I have to write this down because I always call them OMES and I can't remember what they stand for. Oklahoma Office of Management and Enterprise Services. So they're the ones that are responsible for the sale of the Griffin property. And so there's been some talk, again, whether that's actually going to come to fruition or not, whether the council approves it or not. But the thought is, at least over on Griffin, there is also supportive services available, and at least getting this out of downtown if the city chooses to continue the shelter. Right now, the contract for the shelter expires at the end of our fiscal year, which is at the end of June. So the shelter beyond that, there is technically not a contract in place. So what will happen is we go through our budget process, which we're starting that process right now. Council will adopt a new budget in June, and it'll be at that point as to whether council adopts funding or the budget to continue that contract for the shelter or not. So that'll be sort of the critical point for us as we start to move forward. I also wanted to mention that Red Rock Behavioral Health is also been talking with OMES about purchasing. They're looking at 10 acres on that Griffin property to build their new facility. And so in those discussions, we've also been talking about maybe partnering with them to actually create or have a portion of their area designated as a sobering center. So myself and Major Jamie Shattuck traveled up to Tulsa maybe about 3 months ago to visit. Tulsa has a very successful sobering center that they partnered with sort of their sister agency up in the Tulsa, I think it's Grand Health. And so they were kind of walking us through how they do and how they minimize the arrests, but then they get these people into treatments and so on and so forth. So there was a lot to learn and a lot of takeaways that we had from that visit up there. So since that time, we then have engaged with Red Rock, knowing that they're coming, and seeing what we can do as we move down the line. I mentioned affordable housing. That certainly can be an issue, especially as we are in a university town and housing is a premium. But I am happy to report, some of you may be familiar, that we are getting ready to break ground on a new affordable housing complex at Imhoff in Oakhurst, kind of on the south side, called Crimson Flats. And so that will have 75 units available for supportive housing for folks. And so it will be Basically, I want to say it's going to be like 30% of the individual's income. It is slated for low-income individuals. So that will be coming online. And I will say that we also have some funding set aside that we received through HUD that we've been having a hard time finding property to purchase, actually, to build our single resident occupancy or SRO units. But we do have funding set aside for that. On Tuesday, council discussed that in an executive session, and so I think we hopefully might see some things moving here in the next 6 months or so where that's concerned. So at least from the city's perspective, we are seeing maybe some movement a little bit on some affordable housing. That again, these funds were federal funds that they were dedicated for things just like this, and so it's not necessarily taken from the general fund, but they were pass-through funds that we received. And then finally, addressing the shopping carts. I think we've all seen them. You probably see them all today. Honestly, I have my card. You can see them. If you see a location, please email, call, text. I will get somebody out there to try to address that. So we have engaged the business community with this, and so we're trying to investigate various methods to try and contain those shopping carts on the location of which they're located. I know that a lot of businesses do have them, but not all of them. Probably our largest retailer does not have it. And so we have specifically been engaged with them. They've actually been very responsive to us. And so I'm hopeful that we'll start to see things maybe curb here in the next 6 months. So we've kind of been working through a pilot, if you will, over the last 3 months. We still have another 3 months to go on this, but I'm trying to, again, have a more regular, they've hired regular folks to retrieve their carts. As well as I've been engaged with them, I want to say maybe weekly basis as far as like when we're aware of locations, but oftentimes they can't get there fast enough, so then that's when we'll have to send out staff. But of course, it's very costly. We're working up an analysis on exactly how much abandoned shopping carts are costing the city, because not only does it cost staff time and resources to pick up the carts, but for example, if they get caught in a storm drain or they get caught in the sewage system, it creates a giant nightmare. We had one over the summer that was very costly to the city, where we had to bring in a contractor to clean all of that out because it was beyond the capability of what city staff could do. So I just wanted to at least say that the city is not necessarily turning a blind eye to this. There's a lot of different moving pieces and a lot of different things that are happening, and just know that we're working on that, and we know that it's not happening fast enough, and it's not happening where I think everybody would hope it happened, but at least we're hoping. Also know that there's clearly some legislation out there that could actually solve some of these issues for us. So we'll see where that comes at the end of May. Okay, changing gears a little bit. Let's talk about the entertainment district. Anybody heard about the Okay, well, I won't spend a huge amount of time, but I think clearly this is the proposed Rock Creek entertainment district that is highlighted in blue. We've got it's generally along 24th, I think you're probably well aware, along the Rock Creek Road, and of course east of 35. So very quickly, you're probably all very well versed, but I think for those who you hear the words TIF and you think it's an added tax, I wanted to very quickly go through what the TIF basically means, because I think when I saw this graphic, for me, it really kind of helped cement, like, oh, okay, I think I can understand this better, or I think, I got a grasp on this. So basically, it was established in state statute, so this is not something new, this is not something new that Norman has created, or we're different. Oklahoma City's done this, in North Texas, we did this all the time in North Texas. So it's a very common mechanism in order to get developments developed. So it basically functions as an increment, or the incremental. So you have your base tax of where the property is at right now, and then you've got what the future could grow. And so you go in, and right now there's nothing on it. It's not really creating a ton of tax or revenue. So you go in, you build all these really fun, these really cool things, and then all of a sudden the property and everything is, you're creating sales tax, and there's business generated, and all this other thing. Now your tax is up here. So now you have this incremental difference. And so, again, most of you probably aware of that, but I think if there's someone who's not, hopefully this maybe helps a little bit. Also wanted to say, I think during the whole discussion of all of this, either at council or all the different presentations that were made. I don't think anybody actually showed this, and I feel like this actually helps me get at the nut meat, if you will, on what we're talking about. Because I think there's this misnomer that it was this added tax. So really, all of those darker red shaded, the Norman Public Safety, the Norman Forward projects, the Norman Public Transit, those are all dedicated sales tax. Those would not go to help fund this. So those would still go to fund those specific projects, and they would not go towards paying on the tip. It would just be that all of the other stuff, the bug that would help go to pay for that. So it would be non-dedicated to revenues would go for that repayment. So I think that was important to say, because again, we heard it through social media, we heard it over and over again, that you're going to take away from police and fire, you're going to take away, but it's not. So that's not what this would be doing at all. And then finally, I also wanted to say, again, there was a large, there was a lot of discussion about the city is going to be on the hook for all of these funds, and it's going to be the city paying this. And so really what I did is I worked with Anthony Francisco, many of you probably know Anthony, our finance director, and I also worked with Rick Knighton, our city attorney. And so we broke it down as far as like a large amount of that would be coming from the ad valorem. And so none of that would be necessarily city tax that we're stealing from or that we're taking from, if you will. So I'm doing it in quotes because that's not what, technically they're not stealing, but you know what I'm saying. So I think this also helps break down, like when you look at the percentage of like what the developers are in for, what the ad valorem will be covering, and then we also have potential for the Leverage Act funds coming into play. So I think this helps also break that down, that I feel like as all of these discussions were happening, I wish the slide like this had been presented to help really kind of clear that up. So yes, there are some caveats, yes, I've got some things in there, but for the most part, this was the breakdown of the summary of the original proposal and the cost for the TIF. And then I briefly just also wanted to mention from the Hundred report, again, many of you have probably seen this. And so this is where I was talking about the non-dedicated, or I'm sorry, these are the dedicated sales tax revenues. So you're looking at those areas growing by $40 million because of the TIF and the entertainment district. And so you can see those numbers there. And then of course, finally, there's the renderings that you've all probably seen in the paper and the media love to kind of get a hold of. So this of course includes our pocket parks, there's street buffer, there's public art, all that good stuff. I will go ahead and sort of address the elephant in the room. So many of you know there was a petition filed to basically overturn the council's vote and take it to a vote of the public. So since that petition was filed and there was a protest filed against the petition, so we're just sort of like at this next level. So there actually is a hearing next week. Well, is it next week? Maybe it's the week after. It's February 19th. Yes, I was going to say it. My weeks are kind of blending here. And so basically that hearing will determine whether the petition is valid or not. And so depending on whether the judge rules whether it's valid or not, if it is valid, we're still not really sure when that would go to vote. So there seems to be our municipal code is in conflict with state statute. So our city attorney is trying to work through that. And in fact, he believes that if we get to that point, it will probably be litigated. So either way, so depending, because there's going to be some conflicts depending on. One area says the next general election. Well, technically the general election for Norman is the next mayoral race. So that's going to be in 3 years from now. So others are saying like, no, it's going to be the next, election. So that's where the debate comes into play. So there's still a lot of unknowns what's happening as far as where this will wind up at this point. Let's stay tuned. So right now, our understanding is the development. I don't want to necessarily say it's on hold, but there's not necessarily been a lot of progress made. So I think they're okay with seeing how some of this plays out at this point. I don't think it's not necessarily a sign that it's not going to happen. I just think they're trying to see where this all kind of falls out at this point. And then I think, but I will also mention that we've been in conversation with ODOT and that they are already looking at the I-35 corridor on still looking looking at giving Norman some access, some ramps to Rock Creek Road off of 35. So I think that's a positive sign that we're hopefully headed in the right direction with that. Okay, let's talk transportation. Okay, so there's a little thing called the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. So that was probably one of my first things when I came on, since I do have public works and transportation under my purview. That was one of the very first things, was the resolution working with Scott Sturz and then Daryl and our city attorney on trying to, I think our city attorney all along and during this time, we had Catherine Walker and before she left the city. Rick is in the same opinion, OTA has the authority, it's gonna happen, it doesn't matter necessarily whether Norman says yea or nay. So the thought was trying to make, lemonade out of lemons. And so like, if it's gonna come, let's try to get the access roads, let's try to get the infrastructure, let's try to get some of the things that otherwise that the city is on the hook for would be millions and millions of dollars. So right now, this is the proposed, you've got clearly the east-west and you have the north-south. This is part of OTAs in December 2021. They announced they're advancing and connecting communities and economies safely statewide. It's a mouthful, or known as their access program. So, again, there was some recent news in the last day or two that looks like things are moving forward with that. So, I know there's still possible discussions on what's exactly happening with our frontage roads or not happening. So, but right now, as far as we know, they're not in the plan as we start to move forward. So, right or wrong. Next item, let's talk about the Regional Transportation Authority. How many of you have ever been to Grapevine, Texas? A few of you, okay, a lot of you. So Grapevine, I love to say Grapevine, I love to talk about Grapevine because, again, I was sort of there for the whole, I don't want to say from inception, but I was there for a large part of it. So the reason I wanted to highlight Grapevine is Grapevine was a community that saw the benefits of commuter rail coming to their community. And so Trinity Metro is the transit authority in Fort Worth. And they wanted to build a commuter rail line from Fort Worth going into DFW Airport. And so along that corridor, they were approaching all the different communities, saying like, would you like a station? Would you want to be part of this? And so on and so forth. Grapevine stood up and said, hey, we want to be part of that. And so they did. They got a stop and they got a station in Grapevine. And Grapevine has turned this opportunity into an amazing, thriving community as far as like really a destination within North Texas. And so folks who live in Fort Worth or even like I lived in Arlington, I would take the train from Fort Worth over to Grapevine, get off at the train. I would walk. You would walk to all the restaurants and the shops and then they did this whole thing at Christmas, and then it was really this huge destination that folks would go to. It was really a great, fun experience. You get back on the train, we'd go back to Fort Worth, and we'd go home. So I think with the RTA coming and the possibility of commuter rail coming from Edmond down to Oklahoma City to Norman, I think Norman stands to gain very similar. And I think having the possibility of commuter rail coming to Norman, especially for those game days, could be really a game changer for us. So I'm excited to be part of this and have those conversations continue and kind of talk a little bit about what I saw in North Texas versus what I think can happen in Norman. In fact, I joke with Daryl, so when I was interviewing for this position, he called up and said, hey, I'm going to be down in North Texas, but I'd really like to see commuter rail. Can you show me a little bit? I was like, great, meet me in Grapevine. And so it happened to be spring break of last year, and so he met me at the rail station in Grapevine, and so, there's, all these really cool hotels and restaurants, sort of everything, and then I was like, why don't we ride the train in? We'll just go to the airport and then we'll turn around and come back. And so, as I mentioned, it was spring break, so the train was packed, and everybody had their luggage, and I was like, man, I'm gonna stay for some better. So, Daryl got to see sort of firsthand, like, everybody riding into the airport and taking the train, and like, it not having to drive, or, be in all the crazy traffic. This, clearly, the RTA will need to go to a vote for a tax if we continue to go down this road. Right now, we would go at the same time as Oklahoma City and Edmond, so everybody would go for a vote at the same time. The conversations are right now trying to stage that so that would be the most successful. It looks like it would be probably the spring, summer, maybe fall of '26. So it doesn't look like it's gonna happen this year, mostly because of Edmond and, Oklahoma City and some of the other issues that they're facing right now. So, but that will be coming soon, and so, there are the possibility of basically station locations up at Tecumseh, downtown Norman, and I think I'm running out of time, so I apologize for running through this. So, and then of course at the duck pond for those game days. And then also we have the possibility of having the maintenance facility here. Real quick, we have our 8 Norman, which is our master, plan for 2050 is we're just this close. It's been about a year and a half in the making, and we're looking for council adoption in May of this year. So some of the different plans have already been going forward to our council meetings, and so we're excited to see this get across the goal line. Finally, I wanted to end with securing future funding. That's an issue that we're all facing. We just had our public safety study at our study session on Tuesday, where they were presenting all the findings. And the amount of personnel and facilities that we need in, the future years in 2040, we do not have the funding to be able to cover that. So we're gonna have to be looking for other funding sources. We're gonna have to really be supportive of any bond projects that come up, whether it's street maintenance, or if we want to continue all the great things that Norman Forward has been doing. I think you're gonna see that come forward in the next few years as well. So just be on the lookout for that. So, and we're also hopeful that, as we, we saw the public safety study saying we need a station out to the east. Well, out east, we're not really creating a lot of sales tax revenue. It's mostly just property and, in rural areas. So like, why maybe can we not go into maybe tapping into some of those ad valorem taxes and funding available for things like that? So there's some of those discussions and thoughts. And so with that, I'm going to stop. So, what questions?
Hold on, Stephen's coming to you.
First of all, I want to thank you that you're working with the Parks Department. We have 8 new trees in Brookhaven Park. Okay, thank you for that. The Parks Department takes beautiful care of that. I even asked them about the lawn because it looks better than mine. But it's that kind of thing that living in Norman, makes me happy.
It's cool.
Good service, thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I'll relay that. I had to joke with Parks, so there's all the big homelessness, OTA, all the, TIF, and then Parks, and I'm like, what? You're gonna give me a confetti gun? Yes, this is great. So the Parks and stuff does a little bit of my the outlet there. So, what other questions?
Shannon, what's the status of the litigation on our central library?
Yeah, we are in the middle of current litigation with that. So our chief communication officer would probably slap my hand if I did say anything that we're not able to comment at this point. But we're right now working with Pioneer to find a location to move the books. And so we're kind of we've identified a few locations within the city. We're trying to meet their needs as well. So we're kind of in this negotiation, if you will, on where the best place would be. But that's sort of where we're at right now is our biggest issue, trying to move the books. But yeah, the litigation continues to move forward. So I apologize, I'm not able to say much more on that.
Quick question, and this will not get outside the room. Your favorite restaurant that you found so far?
There's so many. That was one thing I didn't remember about Norman. That's so many. But I'm gonna have to say I probably visit the Winston the most. So I'm a little bit on the east side, so it's close. But there's so many. I love them all. Yeah. So.
I've got and maybe I'm confused on it, but on the affordable housing, you're talking about looking for land to buy. You're talking about these developments, and it's 30% of their income for low income. Is the city getting into the real estate business and going to be a developer and a landlord, or are we just paying their rent for their home?
No. So we partnered with our, is it the Norman Housing Authority?
Yeah.
So we'll partner with them, and so it's just that the federal funds are funneled through the city. So we'll be the ones to help.
The city's not doing these developments.
That's correct. That's
what
correct.
I'm kind of.
Yeah. So, no, I apologize. But no, it's just right now, the city quote unquote has the funds that we're trying to, again, find those locations and be able, so that we don't lose our federal funds. because again, it will disturb somebody else, so we'd rather use them here, so. Thank you.
Shannon, thank you so much for this information today. It was always a pleasure to hear from the city, and I'm so glad you were our guest today, and we hope you'll come back and join us another time. She did ask for a membership form. I'd also like to thank all the students of the month and their sponsors or parents that came with them. Thank you for being here today, Joel, Mandy, and Luna. We appreciate that. We'll see y'all each week that you can make it. It's always good to sit at different tables and meet other Rotarians while you're here. I'd like to mention that Jim Dombrowski's birthday is today, and his Rotary anniversary of 42 years. Did I get that right, Jim? Yes, okay, thank you. So, and of course, my dear friend Courtney, that Michael and I might have told some people in town that she was coming all the way from Singapore. You can ask her that story on the way out the door, but really very honored to have her here today and to be able to present her with her first Paul Harris Fellow for all the work and dedication she's done, not even being a Rotarian. So, and she's attending her first Rotary meeting. So it's very, very special today for me. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next Thursday. Michael, Jordan. There you go.